Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to get into Epic History TV's Napoleon in Italy, the Little Corporal. This is about a half-hour video, so I think I'm going to split it into two and do a part one and part two so that I don't have one really long video. I've talked about this during earlier Napoleon videos and series, but I am not as well versed on the Napoleonic era as I am, well, at least in France, as I am in other particular parts of history, although I certainly know more now going into this than I did going into the last series just because of what I've seen and read and all of that when I went through that Napoleon series. So, but I'm certainly not going to act like this is something that I am ridiculously well versed in. Obviously, that is, that's just not, it's not really my lane, but I'm really interested to get into this. Epic History does an awesome job with these videos, and so yeah, let's jump into it. Napoleon in Italy.
An Epic History TV PMF Productions collaboration. In 1796, at the height of the French Revolutionary Wars, a young French general took charge of a ragged, demoralized army in northern Italy. It was his first command. Many expected him to fail. Instead, in just 1 month, he won his first brilliant campaign. With astonishing self-confidence, boldness and energy, he led his army to victory after victory, transforming the war in Europe, winning praise from a grateful republic, and forging a legend. This is the story of Napoleon Bonaparte's first campaign, and the dawn of a new age.
No doubt, long-hair Napoleon looks way more like a revolutionary than the kind of porky, bald Napoleon that he ends up as.
1792. Europe is plunged into conflict by revolution in France. At first, it seems this infant republic will be quickly snuffed out by her neighbors. Incredibly, France clings on, thanks to mass mobilization, patriotic fervor, and her traditional military power. In 1795, France occupies the Low Countries, while Prussia and Spain withdraw from the war. But the French Republic still faces a powerful coalition of enemies, which includes the Austrian Empire and kingdoms of Piedmont, Sardinia, Naples, and Great Britain.
Yeah, the Austrian Empire is going to spend the next handful of years just continuously getting dunked on by the French. If the question is what's going on with Vienna in this era, chances are it's under threat.
As well as a counter-revolutionary revolt in the Vendée region of western France. In Paris, the most extreme revolutionaries had been...
Is that Robespierre down in the bottom right? A 1,000% chance he will cut your throat while you sleep. Jesus Christ, he looks like a psycho. If that's him, it may not be.
Toppled, sent to the guillotine.
Okay, it is.
As they had sent so many before them. France is now governed by the Directory, a more moderate five-man committee, which quickly wins a reputation for corruption and inefficiency. Nevertheless, in 1796, they plan a major military offensive to knock their most dangerous adversary, Austria, out of the war. The two main efforts will be made along the Rhine by powerful armies under General Jourdan and General Moreau. A third effort, of which much less is expected, will be made in northern Italy. The French Army of Italy is a poor cousin, starved of money and supplies, stripped of troops to reinforce French forces on the Rhine. But its fortunes are about to change.
Yeah, the Rhine is where the major offensives are planned, so Italy's neglected. It's got troops being taken from it, not the country of Italy, the army of Italy. And that's you know, that's what's down there, is this kind of conglomerate of not great soldiers, which you can normally find a grip of those in the French army, but this is, you know, even this, by standards of this time, is pretty bad.
On the 2nd of March 1796, the Directory appoint a new commander to lead the army.
Jesus Christ.
One of France's youngest generals, Napoleon Bonaparte. We're delighted to welcome back as video sponsor NapoleonSouvenirs.com, and big thanks to NapoleonSouvenirs.com for sponsoring this video. Napoleon arrives at the Army of Italy's headquarters in Nice on the 25th of March. He is just 26 years old. 2 years have passed since he masterminded French victory at the Siege of Toulon.
Yeah, 26 years old. I need to get my freaking life together.
Since then, his fortunes have been mixed. A short spell as artillery commander in Italy, 10 days in jail when his political patrons fell from power. He then refused to serve in the Vendée, fighting French counter-revolutionaries, leading to several months' unemployment in Paris. Then, an extraordinary break. 13 Vendémiaire, Paris. A royalist mob threatens to storm the national government. Napoleon is the closest general to hand and put in charge of its defense. He disperses the crowds with brutal efficiency and is acclaimed savior of the revolution. A grateful Directory promotes Napoleon to General of Division and awards him command of the Army of Italy. On the 9th of March, he marries his great love, Joséphine de Beauharnais, and leaves for the front 2 days later. There are French generals in Italy with a better claim to command than Napoleon. Serrurier, a professional soldier who first saw action in the 7 Years' War, a decade before Napoleon was born. Augereau, a tough, experienced soldier, bold tactician, and committed Republican. And Massena, risen from the ranks, fearless, tireless, hero of the Battle of Loarno against the Austrians the year before. All three would later become marshals of Napoleon's empire. For now, Napoleon seems to these veterans young and underqualified, a political appointment, embarrassingly infatuated with his new wife. But there is something about the Corsican. As Massena observed, his small size and puny face did not put him in their favor, but as soon as he donned his general's hat, he seemed to grow by 2 feet.
I mean, to be fair, it is a big-ass hat.
Napoleon impresses above all with his tireless energy, and he has much to do. His army is organized into Massena's advance guard of 2 divisions, one led by a hard-fighting Swiss general La Harpe, and the other by Meunier, whom Napoleon soon decides is incompetent. The main body comprises the divisions of Augereau, Serrurier, and 2 smaller divisions under Macquart and Garnier. The cavalry is led by General Stengel. But the Army of Italy has been shockingly neglected by the Directory. The men are hungry and unpaid, with a few units on the verge of mutiny. Some men don't even have shoes or muskets. Napoleon inspects the troops and studies reports. He enforces discipline and breaks up rotten units. He is assisted by his aide-de-camp, Junot, Marmont, and a dashing cavalry colonel, Joachim Murat. As
In the flesh.
Emperor, Napoleon will make 2 of these men dukes and 1 a king. His most valuable assistant is his new chief of staff, General Berthier, who helps him to reorganize the army's supply system and scour southern France for food, transport, and forage.
And is the Jesus Christ behind Napoleon? Let's be completely honest here.
The situation begins to improve. But Napoleon knows what will really rejuvenate his ragged divisions: victory in battle and the promise of plunder.
Man, that sounds like Hannibal coming up over the Alps.
Napoleon has spent 2 years studying the situation in northern Italy and the history of past wars here. He has developed clear plans on how the campaign must be fought. Now, he will put them into action. Napoleon, with 38,000 troops, outnumbers the Piedmontese and the Austrian army. But if they combine, he will be outnumbered, so he must prevent this at all costs. His plan bears all the hallmarks of what will become known as the Napoleonic art of war. A bold, rapid advance, not against the expected target, Genoa, but Dego. Here he will occupy the central position and prize his enemies apart. He knows that when threatened, the Piedmontese will retreat on their capital Turin, the Austrians on Milan. With his enemies divided, unable to support each other, he can defeat each in detail. Napoleon's plan will be aided by the fragility of the Austro-Piedmontese alliance. They regard each other with deep distrust after years of rivalry. The new Austrian commander, General Beaulieu, is experienced and was once considered energetic, but he is now 70 years old and does not know Italy. He is convinced the French will target Genoa, the port used by the British to supply their coalition allies. So much so that he rejects Piedmontese plans for close cooperation. Their troops remain scattered across mountain passes in a general defense against invasion. On the 4th of April, Napoleon moves his headquarters forward to Albenga in preparation for his offensive. But Beaulieu strikes first. On the 10th of April, Austrian troops take Voltri to disrupt the expected French attack on Genoa. The small French garrison falls back to join Massena's advance guard at Savona. But Beaulieu's fixation with Genoa is playing into Napoleon's hands. Dego, with its vital crossroads that link the Piedmontese and Austrian armies, is covered by just 8,000 men of Argenteau's corps. Mountainous terrain means Beaulieu can only march to Argenteau's aid via Acqui, more than 20 miles to the north. What's more, Argenteau has orders to take French positions at Montenotte as a diversion for the attack at Voltri. But the French cling on courageously. Corporal Roache particularly distinguishes himself, exposing himself to enemy fire to shoot down on the enemy. His commander, Colonel Rampont, tells his men, "Here we must conquer or die," a moment which quickly enters French military folklore. It's the perfect setup for Napoleon. The enemy's attention is focused on Voltri, and Argenteau's corps has been left dangerously exposed. He swings into action, sending La Harpe's division to reinforce Rampont's troops, while Massena makes a tough night march across steep ravines in rain and fog to turn Argenteau's right flank. By dawn, the Austrians are outnumbered, outflanked, and under heavy attack. They retreat in disarray. Napoleon orders Massena to move on Dego, while he turns his attention to the Piedmontese. but Augereau's advance gets held up at Cosseria. The old castle is held by Piedmontese and Croatian grenadiers. The French launch frontal attacks into withering fire and suffer hundreds of casualties. When the colonel of the 18th Demi Brigade is killed, a 26-year-old Louis-Gabriel Suchet takes over command. "I have never seen fire like it," wrote Marmont, Napoleon's aide-de-camp. Despite heroic resistance, the hopelessly outnumbered garrison surrenders the next day. With Serrurier's division also advancing from the south, Piedmontese commander General Colli has little choice but to abandon his position at Montezemolo. The same day, under Napoleon's watchful eye, Massena takes Dego. But while La Harpe's division moves off to reinforce Augereau, hungry French troops left in Dego turn to plunder and pillage.
I mean, they don't have shoes, or at least some of them don't, so you can't be totally surprised this is what they do.
No one spots Colonel Vukasovic, a tough Croatian commander, approaching with 3,000 reinforcements. He attacks at dawn, routing the French and retaking Dego with ease. It requires the recall of La Harpe's division and another day of heavy combat before Vukasovic can be driven out of Dego. A bayonet charge led by 27-year-old Colonel Lannes wins particular praise from General Bonaparte.
I kind of like how they're doing this because you obviously know who these people are going to become, and so pointing out their role in the early part of Napoleon's come up is a cool way to go about this.
Napoleon has won 3 victories in 4 days. The marches and battles have been grueling, but he has achieved his first objective. The Austrians are regrouping at Acqui and will soon retreat to Alessandria. They can offer no support to the Piedmontese. And so General Colli orders another withdrawal to a strong defensive position behind the Corsalia River. Napoleon orders an immediate attack. Augereau's division on the right, Serrurier on the left, Massena in support. But the French, under heavy fire, struggle to cross the swollen river with its steep banks. When Serrurier's troops finally get into San Michele, they immediately begin looting the town and are thrown out by a counterattack. Despite his success, Colli is still heavily outnumbered and fears encirclement. The following evening, he begins a covert withdrawal to Mondovi. But Napoleon is not deceived by the fake campfires. Patrols confirm his suspicions. The Piedmontese are pulling back. Though his troops are exhausted, wet and hungry, he launches them after the fleeing enemy.
And this is the double-edged sword of Napoleon. Early on, and really all the way until closer to the end, this works. His constant pushing, the maneuvering, the doing everything you can to get every ounce out of your soldiers and constantly moving forward, that works for a really long time. And you know, his maneuvering across entire countries and his maneuvering on individual battlefields is just it's brilliant. And like when you see successes, it's, you know, it's kind of incredible. But this same sort of thought process and all of that obviously is going to get him into trouble later on.
Colli's troops are caught before they can establish a new defensive line. The brave and popular General Dicat is killed. Retreat turns to rout. The French enter Mondovi in triumph, where at last, briefly, they can eat and rest.
Okay, so I think I'm going to stop it here and do the rest of it in a part 2 so that the video isn't ridiculously long. But it's a really great video. Epic History does great with this sort of stuff, and Napoleon has done what he will become famous for. He's outnumbered by two separate armies, not total. That's the thing. The French have the forces basically all throughout Napoleon's time. They have the numbers, just not for groupings of countries. You know, they have the conscription on their side through his time, you know, running everything. But there, when you're fighting, you know, multiple countries at once, it becomes a little bit of a different prospect. So how do you go about that? You show up places unexpected, you attack unexpected places, and you never let armies get together. You cut them off. That's the huge thing for him, is cutting armies off. He loves to split and attack separately. It's, you know, you see it over and over and over, and you're like, God, figure it out, guys. But really, it's brilliant on his end. So yeah, the next part will be out as quickly as I can get it out. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, help me keep building the channel over here. And I will see you all next time.